want to welcome you all to this class, Religion and Movement. I do believe that all of you are prepared to have a good discussion throughout the semester. Discussion which we shall be doing majorly online with readings, with the films, and the courseworks that will be giving me throughout the semester, beginning with July, ending with December, January. And this is the course that is part of your last year for a bachelor's degree in the program of Democracy and Environment Studies. This slide shows you what we are to deal with within this course. We have religion and movement, and in the course we have 5 topics that we have to cover. The first one is relationship between religion and movement. We shall look at definitions and other things that we shall see later. From there, we shall move to religion and movement in theories. How have scholars, thinkers of the past thought about religion and what it offers in development, or what development does to religion. From there, we shall go to another aspect, religion underpinning in development. And here we shall see the contemporary and other past issues in which religion participated in the development of the people, with faith organizations coming in to offer development in many areas. We could mention education, we could mention health, we could mention water services and sanitation, and other services that we know that the religions have done and participated in the development of our society. Fourth is religion, radicalization, and development. Religion has been good, we know that it's good, but has also been a source of a problem. And how do we face these problems? Lastly, we shall look at the way different religious institutions have been involved in world issues. Notable among these is the environment. Notable among these is human rights, peace and justice, and other issues that have been confronted within our world as we live in this today. How shall we approach the course? Religion and faith form a very, very huge, complex world. What do I mean by a huge, complex world? We find that in every human person, whether he says, I believe in religion or not, there is a certain spiritual aspect that is in the person that cannot be explained. And people live with a certain faith that is beyond what they can manipulate, what they can talk about, what they can think about. Secondly, our terminology. We shall have many terminologies that we shall look at, one of them being religion, being faith, being development, sexual society, and others. Third, we shall look at religion and culture. This is another seriously confusing aspect, most especially as we talk about it in Africa. Because in Africa, the demarcation between religion and culture is not seen, simply because our culture used to be our religion, Our religion used to be our culture, meaning that where one ends, the other begins. Where religion ends, culture begins. Where culture begins, religion ends. So there is no way we can even market it. In my classes, I used to give students to help me try to put the term religion into their local languages across Africa, because I've had students from Tanzania, I've had students from Rwanda, from Burundi, from Congo, from South Sudan, and elsewhere. But whenever we say, let us put the name religion on the blackboard or on a flip chart or anything else, there is a root word that they always give: dini, dini, edini, engini, and other things like that. So, and I asked him a question: why is it that if I ask you to tell me what a tree is in your language, we differ, we have different terminologies, and why is it religion? And in the end, we conclude that actually the term religion is something that came from the Arabs and the Swahili. That is a new terminology that came into our society. Why? Because for us, culture and religion were just the same. We couldn't separate them. Then we shall look at development, which is also a huge and complex world of institutions and ideas, things that are completely in constant change from one to the other, and one to the other, I mean positive change and sometimes even negative changes, and with different conclusions and perspectives. People might say that Africa is undeveloped, but the Africans will say we are the most developed people because we have values and we have cultures and we have whatever. So this is also another huge and complex world that we are going to look at. Lastly, rooted involvement practice done by religious civilization and faith, we find that we have had serious discussions, serious things that religions have brought into our world. Actually, it is said that every civilization has a religious tradition behind it. Every civilization has a religious tradition that is behind it. So meaning that we root much of the development world in and within the religious aspect. Then I ask this question: why do we talk about religion and development today? Why do we speak about it now? Why is it relevant that today I come and teach students religion and development? Why can't we scrap it out of the university curriculum? Why should this fit within a university curriculum? Why do we fit it within social sciences and arts? One, religion has been in politics. And in many cases, it even drives politics. We give an example: Uganda here. I can't go much into the history of religions in the politics in Uganda, but for those of you who come from monarchical societies, you find that the political leader who has been the king used to be actually the religious leader of that society. I could be quoted or I may not be quoted. The Kabaka of Uganda is like the head of the spirits of Uganda. So religion, politics intertwined. But beyond that, beyond pre-colonial times, when the colonialists came here within our state, within our Uganda, British coming in with Lugard and then the British Protectorate and whatever, we find that the religion, the Christian religion, became a very, very important factor in the decisions, in the policies, and in the governance of our society. And how do I explain this? The British came from England, and they came with a religion, the Anglican Church. They were followed by the Catholics, majorly from France. Lavigiri from Tunisia was a Frenchman who started the convocation of the White Fathers. The White Fathers, majority of those who came in first were from France. Later on, the French Canadians and others came in following them. Of course, they found Islam already here. But the Anglicans took a very central part within the politics of our country. If we would frame the hierarchy of leadership in the country, we would get the governor, and below the governor, there would be the Church of Uganda or the Church of England or Anglican Archbishop of Kampala. That's why if we go to State House, Nakasero, which used to be the home of the governor, next to it, there is the All Saints Cathedral. All Saints Cathedral was formerly the chapel of the governor. And up to today, we find that what was planted within our society, the Anglicans knowing how to govern, knowing the state, they have been in government throughout, except for some periods of time when Idi Amin, a Muslim, took over in a coup. And I think in between all these, the Catholic who has been president in our country has been Tito Okello Lutwa for some few months, not speaking about the first prime minister who was Benito Kiwanuka. But we can easily see that religion in politics is within Uganda is seriously intertwined, seriously together, seriously part of it. And today, every time you get a president, the vice has to be another religion. And when they are making the prime ministers and trying to balance the state, the balance always leans on religious factors. Secondly, ethnic factors, but majorly religious factors. The US, we have known or we have heard about terrorism, we have heard about the attacks, we have heard how religion drives the American society. The Islamic world, where we know that the Islamic world doesn't want people to hear sometimes about any other religion. We have had those skirmishes in Egypt. We have had these skirmishes within the Muslim world where politics and religion go together. Western Europe, where they are fighting against the Islamic inclusions, religious terrorism. I mean, I may not talk much about it because we're going to look at it. So these are issues that we have within our society. Religion involvement. Religious development organizations cutting across all religious backgrounds have been in our countries ever since. And we can give very many examples. We have World Vision, we have Caritas, we have Jesuit refugee services, we have the Lutheran Federation, and other agencies that do developmental work, either to the communities that are in villages or to people who are suffering and other areas. And we can also see that we find the regions founding schools, hospitals, banks, and other things that are involved into the development of our people. The region forming part of the United Nations agenda for the service delivery and other big donor agencies like the UK Aid, US Aid. This is a talk that is more live within these agencies, how they can involve nations, states, but majorly religious communities, because religious communities reach people and sometimes they are even more reliable than state agencies. Why do we speak about regional development now? Lastly is the issue of conflicts. I couldn't call it that because we have some other sides behind. Conflict emanating from religious identities, destroying what has been achieved. We have to talk about this. The fundamental agencies, the fundamental communities that have destroyed what has been achieved within the development of our world. Questions about religions recovering secularists, most especially within the Western world. Western world, I'm talking about Western Europe, America, where people are becoming so secularistic. Tensions in multicultural societies, Christian in the Western world versus the Islamic world. Questions about the past. What has there been? What has been there long ago? And how have religion been blended within our society? How much is changing? How much is changing? Is it resurgence or it is blindness? Let us look at our world. Evolution in thinking, history of changing society and changing values. Our world is having an evolution thinking, the world that is changing our society, and values are also on change. 20 years ago, 40 years ago, here in Uganda and perhaps Africa, people couldn't even think about homosexuality. The things are changing, the values are changing, people are losing values. And since they are changing values, there is a question that people need to confront and talk about intellectually, or somehow we need to have a discourse that talks about these issues. From the development world, religion is largely absent, especially in the multilateral world. So people are dismissing religion within development at all. If we could talk much about this, is that people have tried to put religious factors even in public space, and dismissing other religions in those public spaces. Religion as the most powerful force in contemporary life, especially when we talk about the third world, Africa. Religion is so powerful that whoever thinks about it, whoever lives within it, finds that that's where a home that you can find yourself ready to survive and thrive. Then there is church-state relationship, and separation is still a question in many areas. My listeners, the class that comes from Uganda, will know that at some stages, some leaders will say, let the church do its part, let them baptize you. I've never seen baptizing. Why do they join the politics? And when it comes the time of elections, then they try to come and share or bring them into fold so that they can rally for them followers. These are serious issues that need to be talked about. However, religion appears to be as old as humanity itself. And this can be verified by archaeological studies on the old artifacts that are recovered from burial sites, which show some evidence of religious practice. Either you find that the person was buried all people were buried facing a certain direction, were buried with some materials, and these show that there were some mysterious issues that people were grappling with or were dealing with. And this, if you want to know the oldest, the practices that are old within our humanity, is especially when we consider the burials. To know a religious community, look at the way the community looks at the dead and the burials. You remember the times when Ebola hit West Africa. It killed very many people and spread for long simply because of the culture of burials, washing the body, water, and other things. Or how the community treats twins and the issues concerning the marriage, etc., etc. The Neanderthal man who died around 32,000 years ago buried his dead with some kind of relatively sophisticated ceremony, indicating that by that era, religion had already been practiced for thousands and thousands of years. That one thing that all primitive people share or possess, regardless of the ethnic, of their lingual, cultural, or geographic separation, is some kind of religion. We ask ourselves, then what is religion? I think each one can try to put this word in his or her own language. What is religion to you? Without reading books, without referring to any person that you have heard talk about religion. What, according to you, is religion? How do you experience that religion? So the English terminology, or the English term called religion, comes from the Latin regare or legare, meaning what binds man to the gods. That cord, a cord that binds man to God. In that case, of course, if one would have made the terminology proper, the word would have been relegation, but not religion. But definitely, those two terminologies, regare and regare, mean what binds man to God. So Latin word for car or select, but what it really meant to men who first used it, we cannot tell. So we cannot tell really what the word, people who use religion at first wanted it to mean. But you find that in the works of this gentleman called Durkheim, who claimed that all religions divided us into two categories, the sacred and the profane. The sacred being those things that are set apart, things that are holy, things that are knowable, only through extraordinary experience, things that we cannot touch, we call them sacred. And the profane being that which is ordinary, which is knowable, which is sensible, we can sense it, we can know it through normal empirical observations. He divided this world. And for him, the profane can easily defy the sacred. And the profane needs the sacred to thrive and survive. How do we define development? Conventionally, there are two terms that are identified in defining development. I know I'm not the right person to define this term for you, since you have been on the course for all these years doing development. But in my layman's language, development has these two terms. One, development as what happens, then development as what is done. The what happens are those historical processes of social and economic change, especially those associated with modernity. How do we change materially, economically, from this to the other? This is development, what happens. That kind of development that we do. What is done? That is an industry of agencies, NGOs, associations with aid, public policy, and international interventions, which seeks to bring about economic growth or social transformation. So regional development All religions have views on how society should be managed. That's development. Values and characteristics of a good society. That's development. What constitutes development and all human beings. So meaning that religions are or do have a certain form of bringing people to from one angle to the other, from this level to the other, and developing the world. All religions are again prone to have identity factors that promote the development of the in-group, seeds of exclusion and inclusive tendencies of fundamentalism. And these are things that can counter the development that we are talking about. So this is what we are going to do within our course. So the first one, the relationship between religion and development, we shall look at the introduction, we shall look at definitions and the debates. The second one, religion and development theories, we shall look at conflict analysis, we shall look at factual analysis, we shall look at atheist approach. The third, religion and appeal development, we shall look at institutions that have created development agencies and service delivery. Religion, radicalization and development, we shall look at secularism, then religion and the world issues, we shall look at human rights, justice, peace, environment, and we can even add on others because the religions are involved into many things like trafficking and other things that we can speak about. What are our learning outcomes? So on the first one, I want you to demonstrate the link between religion and development, and it is two linked, or link them because you are free. You link them or link them. Number two, I want you to evaluate the different theories on religion and development and be part of those debates that happen into religion and development. Number three, I want you to engage in activities of religion in development. We shall see some projects that have been started by religions. So how do you come in? How do you come in? The other one, we shall critique different radicalized thinking, and then we show concern and advocate for world issues. How shall we do our assessment? Assessment for number one, we shall be debating on issues. I will give some rubrics, some guidelines on how to debate on this. And the second one, we shall make some simulations. So again, we use some rubrics. Then I will ask you to design an intervention. I'll give you a checklist on what intervention you need to work on. I will ask you to write a paper. Then I will also ask you to write an intervention in two groups, which we shall create, and we shall work on these groups online. But when we meet in January, people will have to present within the groups so that we remain engaged within. And remember that for relationship between religion and development will be for July. Religion and development theories will be for August. Religion and appealing development will be for September. Religion, radicalization and development will be for October. And November, religion in world issues. And at the end of our course, I want you to gain skills. These are a few skills that I've put down, but you can also get some other skills that you can learn from. I want you to be very, very innovative and creative. I want you to have a knowledge transfer. What you have learned, transfer it to your work, transfer it to your church or to your mosque or to whatever. To be ethical, because you have seen that religions are ethical, and also seem empathetic. Feel empathy for people who are in need. And please also to engage with the community into the development of our world. These are a few things that I want you to capture, and we see how we can do with them.